Welcome back to Otaku Dai-kun. I'm Dai, and for this episode we'll be discussing what I call cliffhanger anime, or read the manga anime. An overwhelming number of anime series are adaptations of manga, light novels, visual novels, and video games. For games and visual novels, the narrative is sold as a complete package, with a clear beginning and end, so telling the full story isn't usually an issue. Manga and light novels, however, are serialized, telling little pieces of their narrative over time. As such, when a manga or light novel gets adapted into an anime, the animation production often catches up to its source material, running out of story to tell. At times, studios will resolve this problem by creating original endings for their anime. The original Fullmetal Alchemist does this, as does D and Angel. More often, however, an anime will conclude with just 1 or 2 seasons and end on a non-ending, or cliffhanger. They're set up so that the story can resume once the source material gets published, but oftentimes the source material takes too long and the anime isn't deemed popular or profitable enough to ever get renewed. Initial D is one of the rare exceptions, as it has been renewed for more seasons several times over before finally concluding its story. Its original manga had a publishing run of nearly 2 decades, over which it was animated using a variety of media and techniques as technology moved from hand-painted cells to digital animation. Most anime aren't lucky enough to receive this special treatment, and end on an inconclusive note before being tossed into the ebb and flow of history. I call these shows cliffhanger anime, and we'll be going over a number of them in this episode. Some anime that I want to see more of won't make this list, given that they ended fairly recently, and there's a good chance they'll get a new season as long as material becomes available. Like Attack on Titan. I'm not exactly worried about that one. Since I'll be commenting on the endings to these stories, be warned as spoilers are inevitable.
You have been warned.
Ooh, I love this show.
No Game No Life is an anime adaptation of a light novel that's currently still being published. It makes this list because it's been nearly 2 years since its anime ended. It tells the story of Sora and Shiro, 2 hikikomori who are undefeated at games but struggle to handle living in society, thinking the world they live in as one poorly designed, shitty game. The 2 of them are teleported to Disboard, a fantasy-esque world where all matters such as property, status, and authority are determined by games. Sora and Shiro quickly learn that, by winning in games against all the other kingdoms, they will ultimately get the chance to defeat Disboard's god and become the next god themselves, a challenge they ambitiously accept. They seize victory over 2 major kingdoms in the show's first season, ending with Sora and Shiro reaffirming their goal of conquering the world. Currently, the anime only covers the first 3 volumes of the light novel, with a total of 8 having been published so far. That should be more than enough material for a second season, and I really hope this show can be renewed before it loses popularity. This anime is an interesting case. It's based off a manga that finished its narrative before the anime began airing, so a lack of source material wasn't the reason for this show's cliffhanger ending. If I had to guess, I'd say the reason was controversy. In summation, Bunny Drop is about a man named Daikichi, who winds up becoming the legal guardian of a 6-year-old girl named Rin, who is supposedly the illegitimate daughter of Daikichi's grandfather. He basically adopts her as his daughter, and we get to see their journey together. Daikichi struggles, but ultimately adapts to being a single father, and Rin starts to make friends and grow out of her shell. It's an adorable anime, but ends on a less than satisfying note. One major unresolved plot point was Daikichi's growing relationship with Yukari, a single mom he's shown romantic interest in. The anime makes it seem like it'll end with Daikichi and Yukari getting married and forming a well-rounded family. The mangaka, however, had a different, more original idea. Turns out, Rin finds out that she and Daikichi aren't actually blood-related after all, and begins to have feelings for him. After all, she never outright acknowledges Daikichi as her father, leaving her ultimate opinion of him a bit of a mystery. In the end, Daikichi reluctantly agrees to acknowledge and cooperate with Rin's feelings, and the 2 of them get married after Rin graduates school. It completely changes the mood and theme of the story, making it so you can never watch it in the same way again. It's very interesting, actually, but admittedly hard to swallow. I assume the creators of the anime felt that the show would be more appealing as a tender father-daughter story. I'm not sure whether I'd want the anime to finish off the manga's story or not. I'd like to hear your thoughts. Some people might be turned away from this anime due to its constant fan service, but it really does tell a great story regardless. It tells the story of a zombie apocalypse that breaks out all over the world. The main characters are a group of Japanese students and their nurse banding together to survive the end of the world. There's a lot of conflict and drama to keep the narrative emotionally gripping, and I actually find the fan service effective at providing sexual tension that complements the survival horror elements. The anime runs for 12 episodes and ends with our team proceeding to another section of the city, confident and capable of surviving this harsh new apocalypse. The anime series only covers the first 3.5 volumes of its original manga. The manga currently has 7 published volumes, with plenty more action and raunchiness to be had. I suppose there's a possibility that a new season may eventually appear, but I'm worried because the manga continues to go on hiatus, with its most recent publication being in 2013. Personally, I'd love for the manga to make one final push and conclude the story, and for the anime series to cover that remaining material. At this point, any hesitation further jeopardizes the series' completion. While I really want to see more zombie-busting, boob-bouncing action, I'm actually fairly satisfied by the anime's ending, since it matches the often inconclusive endings seen in zombie movies. Still, so long as the original authors have more story they'd like to tell, I'll continue to support them. This anime kinda got what was coming to it, adapting a long manga with a far-off conclusion. As a result, the ultimate ending of the story has never been animated, despite being revisited as a few OVA projects. It follows a young archaeologist, Xiaoran, who travels with his companions from world to world collecting feathers to restore his lover, Sakura's, vitality and memories. Throughout their journey, the anime keeps hinting to plot points, namely characters being incomplete clones of their original selves, but these revelations are never made before the TV anime series ends. By the end of the manga, there are 2 Xiaorans and 2 Sakuras, and a ton of crazy plot twists that manage to come to a conclusion of sorts. The anime, however, never reaches such a cadence. Even after 2 seasons, 2 OVAs, and a movie, these animated adaptations completely fragment the narrative, and don't stand on their own at all. This series would take a lot of work to get back on track, and after 7 years, it's sort of expired. I spent a lot of time and mental energy on this anime, and I still don't feel very satisfied, which is a loss I'll just have to cut. School Rumble, as the name implies, is a frantic school anime with a lot of romantic comedy undertones. At its heart is the story of Kenji Harima, as he tries to confess to and win the love of his long-standing crush, Tenma Tsukamoto. The narrative is filled with trolling, constantly building up and demolishing moments for Harima to confess and break the naive misunderstandings of its characters. By the ending of the anime's 2nd season, Tenma still doesn't realize Harima's affections. The original manga concludes the story, and it begins to raise the stakes for all of its characters. Eventually, Harima does confess his feelings for Tenma, but she ultimately refuses to acknowledge them, as she has lingering affections for one of her former classmates. Harima ultimately decides to let Tenma go, and the manga ends on a bittersweet conclusion. Technically, an OVA does go back and tell the final moments of the manga, but only after skipping a large portion of the story's build-up. Considering all the build-up, I'm disappointed by School Rumble's ending, so I guess I don't mind whether or not its story is completely told via animation. Kareshi Kanojo no Jijo tells the story of Yukino and her romance with her classmate Arima, after her immaculate reputation for beauty and good grades is challenged by him. Their love has many ups and downs, and their struggle is the core source of the story's entertainment. The anime of Kare Kano ends without warning, and without any sort of narrative cadence. Not so much as a "we'll keep working toward our goal" sort of ending. In fact, the last episode or so of the anime actually raises more questions than it answers, making it seem like Yukino and Arima's relationship will lead to tragedy. This is because the anime only covers 7 of the manga's 21 volumes, so far more than half the story is ignored. The production of Kare Kano's anime was apparently concluded prematurely from internal conflict between the mangaka and Studio Gainax. This was about 17 years ago, and a lot has changed in the industry since then. The manga finally finished its run in 2005, ultimately ending on a happy note, with Yukino and Arima having 3 children. That was over 10 years ago, so the odds of this story being animated again is next to none. This anime was surprisingly fun. I started watching it with Ari-chan on a whim, and it turned out to be quite addicting. Of course, we reached the end and found out that the original manga it's based on has still been going for nearly 7 years after its anime abruptly ended. Skip Beat tells the story of Kyoko, a teenage girl who is betrayed by her friend and crush, Shotaro. Shotaro is a TV star and musician, an idol essentially, and had been using Kyoko to pay for his living expenses and care for him, without any intention of returning her feelings. When this is revealed to her, her life comes crashing down around her. She takes her anger and rage and directs it toward becoming a TV sensation herself, with the goal of destroying Shotaro's fame as vengeance. It's a tale of showbiz, and deals a lot in acting, which is fairly unique for an anime. Kyoko's own rise to fame is still in progress by the time the anime ends, so it leaves much to be desired, even if the story arcs covered are still enjoyable. The bizarre love triangle between Kyoko, Shotaro, and his rival Ren wind up taking a number of interesting turns in the manga that the anime simply doesn't cover. I'd love to see more of this anime, but it's been so long that I've got plenty of reasons to doubt. There's a Kickstarter page for the show to get an English dub right now, and maybe that'll bring interest in the show being renewed for a new season, but I kind of doubt it. Adi-chan requested we watch this little gem, and it wound up being a very sincere and well-written anime about two brothers who vow to grow up and journey to the moon together. They've got a long journey ahead of them that spans 99 episodes, taking its time to get very detailed with its narrative. The anime had been releasing regularly for 2 years without any major breaks, but stopped early 2014 and dumped a status quo ending on us. The manga is still ongoing, but it's been over a year since anything anime related has been announced, so I don't feel as confident for a renewal as I'd like to be. This is an anime that has plenty of depth below its amusing comedic surface. It tells the story of Ko Ichinomiya, a wealthy son of an even wealthier business titan. He winds up living under a bridge in Tokyo so that he can fulfill an obligation to Nino, a peculiar girl who saved his life. Refusing to be indebted to her, he lives with her and her riverside friends, and partakes in their extremely silly, daily endeavors. The heart and soul of its narrative rests upon Nino, a peculiar woman who claims to be from Venus. Throughout 2 seasons of anime, we are constantly left to wonder whether Nino really is from space, and if there's a huge conspiracy afoot. The anime ends without confirming any of this, but the manga just finished last year, and may have more to reveal. It's been about 5 years since the anime ended, so it has questionable odds of ever being revived. This anime didn't leave a strong enough impression for me to be very invested in it, probably because it ended on a cliffhanger. It follows Chihiro, a young boy who has a zombie fetish. He concocts a resurrection potion when trying to revive his dead cat. Rhea, a young girl who had been watching him make this potion, steals it and tries to drink it to commit suicide. Later, she falls off a cliff and dies, only to be brought back as a zombie. Of course, Chihiro is smitten, and the two become a couple. The anime deals with Rhea's creepy-ass father and his intense affections for her, as well as reveals some zombie-like behaviors that Rhea begins to develop. Where the story would ultimately go went unanswered, leaving only hints of what would come. The manga finished over a year ago, concluding the story that the anime left untold over 3 years ago. The large hiatus leaves me room to doubt its revival. Honestly, these are the most pressing cases of cliffhanger anime that I'm aware of. Obviously, there are more, and I look forward to discussing them in the comments below. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to my channel for more anime goodness. Until then, celebrate your fandom.